We're good.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Nick Anderson. As you may have just heard me reference Mike Zonowski, we do have a hard stop at 7:50 today, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully everyone has joined the call at this point. So today we're going to do the 2015 Fall Sports Fest Powerlifting pre-competition. We're well into the season now. Pre-competition webinar. Again, my name is Nick Anderson. I am Special Olympics Maryland Regional Sports Director. I'm also the staff lead for powerlifting. This will be my third year as the staff lead for powerlifting. Len Walker. Hey, Len, have you joined the call yet? Len Walker will be returning as competition director, and he will be joining us on the call here tonight, hopefully in a little bit. Okay, so the agenda. Obviously, we started welcoming our introductions. We're going to go over the entries and some numbers. We'll cover the schedule, the venue, some rules, updates, and reminders, more reminders than anything else. Then some miscellaneous stuff, and then we'll end with a question and answer session. So powerlifting entries, obviously there are 3 events. Athletes can be entered in all 3 of the events for either the deadlift or the bench press. Currently we have 71 athletes in bench press and then 69 in both the deadlift and combination. So that's really good. That's about the same training numbers we had last year, and then we had a little under a 10% scratch rate, if I remember correctly, day of competition last year. So numbers are right where they've been in the past. Overall event schedule, starting at 7:30 to 8:30, there'll be delegation registration. That's in the control center, which is in the not ARCC lower level. It's the spin room. It's the same place it was the previous two. Mike, was it there last year? I thought I remembered it being in
No, we moved into the field house last year. It was in there 2 years ago.
2 years ago, that's right. Okay, so it's the same place it was 2 years ago, not where it was last year. And then from 8:30 to 9, the delegations will assemble in the seating area in the arena, where we've always held opening ceremonies in the past. 9 to 9:45 will be the opening ceremonies. 10 o'clock to about 5 o'clock is the estimated time. Varies by sport. Powerlifting will be slightly later just because there is some breakdown and setup we have to do, obviously, with us sharing the same venue as the opening ceremonies, but that's usually a pretty quick turnaround. And then throughout the day from 10 to 4, there will be family hospitality in the field house, which is directly across the hall from the powerlifting venue. Delegation registration, there will be a packet for each sport. Within each delegation, flag football teams will have a packet for each team that doesn't apply to us. Head coaches or HODs can pick up the packet for each team/sport. You'll need the information. Oh, you need to inform, the person at check-in of any scratches. Excuse me for that little misread there. Our schedule is tentative, as you can see. Same delegation registration opens at 7:30. The opening is at 9. We will have a coaches meeting at the stage area, the same place we've had it the last few years. That'll happen at 10 o'clock. Competition should start around 10:15. Again, with the breakdown from opening and the setup for our venue, that might vary. We probably won't get started anywhere before 10:15, but around 10:15 we'll probably get started. And the tentative end of competition is 3 o'clock. Okay, so here's the overall map. We're in the same venue we've always been, the not ARC arena. So again, you're parking the parking lots down below here in this whole area, and then you'll just simply walk into the building, and we're in the same place as always.
Nick, while you're on there, actually, you can go back. The control center where they're doing the registration check-in is that arrow way towards the end of the knot arena. It's on the bottom floor. It's a little side room where they have a whole bunch of exercise bikes for spinning. So.
For some of you who may remember 2 years ago, if you're actually in the arena where we hold our competition looking out into the hallway, if you were to turn down that hallway to your right, you'll come to a section maybe 100 feet down the hallway where their fitness center, their weight room is on the right, and on the left is the spinning room, for those of you who are curious. Powerlifting venue, the same setup it's been for a number of years. We'll have the pipe and drape up on the left side of the arena with those bleachers up. They will not be out, they will be up. Pipe and drape, and we'll have a warm-up area and staging area behind the pipe and drape. That's the black hanging curtains, for those of you who might not be aware of what I'm speaking of. In the center of the arena, we'll have a bunch of spectator seating. On the left side, the bleachers will be out for spectator area. And then obviously we'll have our raised platform, our stage area for the actual competition. It'll be the same stage that's used for opening ceremonies. So no changes at all from the past few years.
Nick, actually, we could ask the folks, sorry, this is a little side piece, but when the powerlifting competition starts, it would be exceedingly helpful if powerlifting delegations could move to the seats closest to the stage or where the lifting is going on. That'll allow, there's about 400 chairs that we have to put out by hand with our volunteers and such, and if we can have the back section pretty much empty, it'll help with us with cleanup later in the day. So it's not essential, but it would be helpful if you could have your teams move much closer to the stage itself. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And then also the closer you are, the more you can view and enjoy the competition. So there are definitely benefits to sitting closer. Okay, Len, have you been able to join us on the call?
Yeah, I'm here.
Are you? Do you also have the webinar open in front of you, or are you just on the call?
I'm just on the call. I don't have.
Okay. Yep, no big deal. I was just going to ask if you would go through the rules, but since I have them, I'll just do some quick read through. I'm not going to go through all the rules for everyone. You know, we've been through the entire season, so I'll just hit a few quick reminders. We don't have this problem. Obviously, everyone needs to know that everyone needs to be over the age of 16. That's not an issue for this year. Yeah, the powerlifting registration forms, the registration pack, that will be distributed to the head coach for each delegation prior to the competition. When the registration form, is that something that you are going to send out? I know that's on another slide when you need it back by and what information they need. Is there an actual form, or is there just those few questions that you'd like them to complete for each athlete?
There's no actual form. We have pretty much the same coaches we've had in the past. I just need the lifter's name, county, weight that they expect them to hit when they come to the competition, and their opening bench and deadlift.
Perfect. And then also, if you can note if your athlete is competing in all three, which anyone who is entered in the bench and deadlift would essentially be automatically entered in that third. You just need to note that on your sheet. Weigh-ins will be conducted prior to the event. They'll be conducted in the same hallway towards the front of the building. So if you enter into the arena through the main doors, there's a set of stairs in front of you. Just past those stairs, there's a little registration type desk that's very small, and there's never anyone at it, off to the right. And just by that desk, there's a hallway. Let's see if I can actually go back. So essentially, if you were to walk in the gym through these main doors, right along the edge of this part of the building where the arena starts, there's actually a hallway that leads to some locker rooms. That's where we've done weigh-in in the past, both in the men's and women's locker room. Chalk is permitted on hands. Powder is permitted only on designated areas of the body. Only athletes and one coach are permitted in the lift staging, or the lifting stage, excuse me, along with officials. Lifters have 1 minute to initiate the lift. If weight is dropped intentionally or declared no lift, the lifter may be DQ'd.
Hey, Nick, Jim Downs,
Yep.
Quick question. Are you guys going to have chalk there, or do we need to bring chalk?
You will need to bring your chalk.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Continuing. Another rules reminder. Here's the information that Len mentioned before, what he'll need. There's his email address. This slide deck will be sent out, so you'll have access to this. Typically, I will send the actual PowerPoint slide deck. Typically, we do it in PDF format. However, I'll send the actual slide deck so people have access to Len's email address. If you can just get that to Len by 10/17, again, he needs the area, first name, last name, any nicknames, age, sex of the athlete, and their opening lift for bench and deadlift if applicable, and then obviously their body weight.
Nick, this is Linda Belcito.
Mm-hmm.
Are you using the new body weight categories as per USAPL? I noticed on the sheets from last year that the weight categories are not the same as the weight categories are now.
Len, I'll go ahead and pass that question off to you. Did you hear Linda Joe's question?
I did, and yes, we will be, LJ.
Using the new weight categories?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And can we also ask that when you post the flights, you put the body weight that the athlete weighed in and the age group that they're in so we know who's competing against who?
Sure, I can do that.
Great. Thank you.
Uniform requirements, a lifting suit, undershirt is required, briefs, footwear, long socks up to the knee must be worn for the deadlift. A lifting belt is optional but highly encouraged. Wraps, if an athlete has a physical disability, there are some modifications that are allowed. I think there's nothing, from what I've seen in competition, nothing new that we haven't seen before, so we should be fine there. Baby powder, pool hall chalk, liquid chalk, resin, talc, magnesium carbonate, they are all permitted. And then obviously using any oil, grease, lubricants of any kind is not permitted. Bench press rules, not necessarily going to read through all of these. We all know the rules at this point. The only thing I would stress is, as a coach, if you are spotting your athlete, just make sure that you have your hands in the ready position, however, are not touching the bar and are clearly not touching the bar at any point during the lift.
Isn't that going to cause a problem for the head referee?
What was that? Sorry.
If a coach is spotting for the bench, then he's standing directly in front of the head referee, and that's really not allowed according to the rules. So one of my questions was going to be, who's going to be spotting for these athletes? Because, you know, at the qualifier, we saw some lifts that were actually assisted by coaches, and whether they were good or bad lifts at the end, I'm just going to put this out there to the delegation that there were some parents that had some issue with that. The way we train our athletes is we let go of the bar, and they have to be able to follow the commands, start, press, racket, with no assistance from the coach. And if you have spotters at the bar, those spotters have to know how to spot these athletes. So this seems to be a recurring theme year after year. And, as an assistant coach for many years, and it's just very concerning. So I'm just putting that out there.
Len, if you'd like to field that one, you can, or I can. It's up to you.
No, I'm good with it. As far as the coach being there to help spot, the position I've always held since I've done this is all I ask is that once you hand off and you let go of the bar, you spin to the side so that my head judge has a clear shot. You know your athletes better than me, any spotter I might get in there, anybody else does, to know when there's a problem that you need to grab that bar. So as far as an aspect of safety, I would prefer that you were there. All I ask is, like I said, you spin to the side so that my head judge can see the bar and don't touch it unless you have to. Is that fair?
Yeah,
Well,
that may have been my mistake in my wording of what I was stating. So if the confusion was with what I said, I do apologize.
No, I hear what you're saying, and I know Len knows the rules. I just know that there were some past issues where the coaches agreed or disagreed on the calls made by the referees on a lift that was assisted by a coach. And, I think in all fairness to these athletes, we have to stick to the rules. And if an athlete can't complete a lift, the referees need to know that if anybody touches that bar at any point during the lift, it's a red flag. So, I'm just putting that out there. Consistency has been something that I think has been better, but I still think it needs work.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, and I'm sure Len does as well. You're 100% right. If the second the bar is touched by anyone once it's let go, then it's a bad lift. So you're 100% right. That's just something that Len and I have to stress with our judges.
Thank you.
Linda, Joe, this is Mike. Just a clarification. I didn't know if there was a second piece to that. Do we need to do I don't want to say a better job, but more demonstrably show that a lift was called as bad? Or is that not part of the concern there, that's...
Well, I think that Len does a terrific job with the time and the people that he's using to do this. I don't know that the referees, these are college kids, I assume, that are stepping forward to help run these events. And they're trying to do the best they can with a, 5 or a 10-minute briefing. However, if they don't know the sport or they've never done the lifts, I don't think they know when an athlete is in trouble or, what the refereeing responsibilities are sitting in that chair. And so, as a coach and an athlete and a nurse, safety is always priority, in our minds, I believe. So that's the thing. I think moving forward, these are all issues that I think Jim and I and you, Mike, have discussed need to be done during the year to increase your cadre of volunteers who can be educated and taught how to do this and maybe keep them involved. But I think for the most part, the people who Len has recruited have done a pretty decent job, but, I think it could get better. Because it's kind of scary when you see somebody and you don't know whether to make a call or not, and, you don't want to be the bad guy, but, what are we teaching these athletes if we're not providing them the best refereeing and the best safe lifting environment? That's really what I'm trying to get across.
Yeah, OJ, I 100% agree with you. So Len usually does some outside recruiting for the head officials and maybe one additional official, but yes, the side judges are who, and he does recruit for additional people. That's just usually what he's able to secure for the day of. And then the rest of the officials, the side judges, the spotters, side spotters, those are college students who you are absolutely correct. We do a run through in the morning of what they're supposed to do and reminders throughout the day, but when it comes right down to it, they're 18 to 21-year-old who this might be their only exposure to powerlifting throughout the entire year and not feel fully comfortable in that situation. So we do the best we can do, and I'll jump ahead a little bit in the slides. I won't actually go there. We have gone through about 3 months now of our powerlifting sports management team, and that is definitely something that we looked at this year, and it was just a little bit too late in the year to implement. But for future seasons, we are going to look to hold a training early in the year and see if we can get a small group of people that can commit to going to multiple qualifiers throughout the year and commit to being at the state competition. So we have some trained officials who are exposed to the competition throughout the year.
Yeah, Nick, and this is Jim Downs. I had reached out to Mike Sickelman, the new USAPL Maryland director, to try to see if they could support sending referees, and he ultimately couldn't come up with enough because they've got their own competitions to cover. So I might try. He wasn't close to the idea, but he just couldn't support it for this year. So
yeah,
we can continue working on it.
Linda Joe, we definitely hear you, and it's definitely something that we are aware of. For next year, we are going to be on top of essentially starting a week or so after the competition when the group meets to talk about the wrap up from this year and the future of the sport. I mean, it's something we're aware of, and we're going to try to remedy.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to put this out there. If you would please include me, I'd love to help you, because I don't know if Jim has told you, but this is going to be my last year of coaching, and I'll be stepping away from that role. But if you'd like me to help you with more of the administrative stuff moving forward, I'd be glad to help you get that going for the future.
Yeah, let's connect at Fall Fest, you and I. Okay, thank you for bringing that up, Joe. Okay, back to the rules reminders again. Everyone knows what is not allowed, and we did just cover it in this brief discussion, so I'm not going to read through all of this. Deadlift, again, at this point, I would hope that everyone knows these rules, so I'm not going to spend your time just reading through that, especially because I'm assuming we have some questions here at the end. A few key points. Just make sure your athlete is aware of the commands. I'm hoping you've been teaching the command, but the only command for the deadlift is down, and then for the bench press, just make sure that you know. For the bench press, it's down, press, and rack. Just make sure that your athletes know those commands, are familiar with them. I would assume they are, but just make sure that you taught them, because they will be enforced at the state competition. Again, we don't need to go through the causes, the reasons you can be disqualified for the deadlift. We all should know this at this point. Combination, again, that's if an athlete is entered into the bench press and the deadlift, they can be entered into a third event, which is the combination, which is the final score of the bench and the deadlift being added together for their combination lift. Okay, I briefly mentioned the sports management team. So this year, for all of our fall sports, we have instituted sports management teams, and that is a group of people that on a regular basis, we actually met the first Tuesday of every month throughout the entire season. We met the same as we are now via a webinar conference call to discuss certain things throughout the year, any issues that popped up, and where where we'd like to see the sport go and some improvements to it. As you can see, it's a very diverse team. We had Len Walker, who all of you know, Jim Downs, who I would assume all of you know, Scott Shiplett, who was a first-year coach last year at Fall Fest. Most of you probably recognize Scott if you don't already know him. Dan Zottarelli, who has been around for many, many years, and all of you would know. Montgomery County powerlifter, who unfortunately is unable to compete this year due to some health issues. So he has not stepped away from the sport. He has joined us on our sports management team. John Edwards, Kathy Barrett, who I believe last year was also a first-year coach from Howard County, and then, of course, myself. As I said, we met every month, the first Tuesday of every month, to discuss multiple things. Just a few quick updates that I'd like to share with the group now. There'll be more to come after the season. But we as a group have decided that we would like to reintroduce the squat as an event in the 2016 season. Now, adding the squat could potentially add a lot of logistical problems, so we're not sure in what capacity it will be offered, but it will be offered. It may just be an exhibition with a limited number of athletes from each county, or it could be as big as actually having it as a fully offered, wide-open event. But it will be back in some capacity in 2016 and moving forward. In addition to that, there's always that downtime at the end of competition when Len and the team is tabulating results. We would like to take that time to just do, I understand it will not be comprehensive, and we are going to look to offer something next season, but just do a brief coaches clinic on the squat. For those of you who might not have ever taught the squat, I would assume you squat yourself, but you might not squat yourself. It would just be an introduction to the squat. We can talk through some rules. I've reached out to a couple athletes that I know have squatted in the past to see if they would be available for some demonstration purposes. More about that will come out by Tuesday, October 20th. We as a sports management team still have to talk through that and figure out who we would like to be the clinician for that. Does anyone have any questions? Before I move on, does anyone have any questions or thoughts or feedback on the squat being reintroduced?
I do.
Go ahead.
Well, logistically, I think for some of the teams, you're really going to have a lot of issues with teaching the squat. If this sport is only going to be 12 weeks, I think it is, Jim. I mean, you know probably better than I, but that is something that I really have a concern about. And I mentioned it to a couple of the parents at our training this past weekend, and some of them just rolled their eyes. I think now we're getting into a situation where you really have to have spotters, equipment, training, because it takes an athlete a pretty long time to learn how to squat to the levels that we need them to squat below parallel. And from a safety concern, I'm not saying that every one of these athletes falls into this category, but time-wise, running competitions, when you get into the squat, it just adds a lot of time to your event. So, you know, you've been to national events, you've been to world events, you know what that involves. And until this sport decides whose rules they're following, how they're going to adjust these rules to accommodate these athletes, I think you really need to take a hard look at what you're doing by incorporating the squat. It's good if you want to do it as a spectator, an exhibition thing. I think that's terrific. But as far as saying that, you know, to the coaches out there, okay, now we're going to offer squat, bench, and deadlift, I don't know how much time these coaches are spending with these athletes, but I do know that it takes a long time to go through training for 2 events, and now you're adding another one. So
Yeah, we definitely as a group discussed that, which is why I wanted to make it clear that we're not. It's going to be offered, but like I threw out there, it may only be offered as an exhibition and in a limited capacity next year. Just because, as you're saying, logistically, not only from the competition end, which adds a lot more time when you add that third event, but from the training and preparation and adds a lot more time. So again, it is something we are going to offer, but more than likely it will only be in a very limited capacity and as an exhibition in 2016, just because there are so many limitations.
Well, and then the other thing you have to remember too, and I don't know, if at this event, if we're going to have enough warm-up benches for the athletes, because I know last year we only had one. You need warm-up areas that are going to accommodate all the athletes, so that you don't have different delegations, sort of fighting over different territories, so to speak. So.
Yep, exactly. That's all stuff that we have discussed and we took into consideration as we talked through whether or not we would like to, offer the squat again, and that is what ultimately led us to saying it's going to be offered, but also noting that it's a high probability that it's going to be very limited. It may be limited to just one athlete or two athletes per area if an area even wants to host it, and more than likely just to be an exhibition.
Yeah.
Jim, Len, Scott, anything any of you would like to add on this, just because you were there for the majority of the meetings where we discussed this edition?
This is Jim. I think you covered that only, I know on our team, LJ, probably only 2 or 3 athletes would even consider training in squat. Thomas, Nick, maybe Justin. Certainly no John Edwards can, but he's got, whether he's over his physical problems or not by next year, I don't know. But it definitely wouldn't be for every athlete. And one of the things we talked about is holding it as an exhibition, either as we're getting ready for awards ceremonies or maybe something. It would have to be after the regular competition because squat takes a lot out of you, so we wouldn't want to make it before they did their bench or their deadlift. But
yeah.
But it was just a thought of like really easing into doing this, not as a big third competition piece at this point.
Right.
But at the national level, they do have it, so it is something the state level should be at least thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly what Jim said. It's a trial thing because they do it at nationals, they do it at worlds, and we feel at a state level we should be doing it too. But we recognize there's a whole lot to it, just like you said. So that's why we want to ease into it, give it a feel in 2016, see what we need to improve upon. Like he said earlier, we're trying to pull, more USAPL judges and spotters in, as well as getting some of the volunteers we have to do this throughout the year. And if we're going to do this as a full-blown powerlifting, it's going to take training the team all year, not just a 12-week cycle. So these are all things we're looking at and just trying to pull it together and ease into it so that we can get up to speed.
Right. Well, I think that's a good plan, and I also think that, again, logistically, depending on the sizes of your teams, you need to take into consideration the amount of time it takes to train these athletes for the bench and the deadlift and then the squat. So, again, if you're going to go to a full year program, that's a whole other thing where they will hook up with a coach hopefully through the year. That's I think beyond this webinar, but I think what you might next need to do then is to decide how are you going to select your athletes who represent you at your national games. There has to be a qualifying total. You get into a whole level of specifics here that I don't know that that's the way you've done things in the past, but, my experience, I think wasn't the best experience when we trained an athlete for an entire year, almost 9 months, and got to the event, and she was DQ'd because they wouldn't allow a light bar. So,
Linda Jo, thank you for saying that, because I actually should have added that on here, and I apologize for not adding that. So the situation for coaches who are not aware, there was an athlete who was selected for Team Maryland who represented us at USA Games from Montgomery County, who uses a 15-pound bar. And then when we got to competition, it was discovered, actually just prior to competition, it was discovered that the 15-pound bar would not be allowed. So this year, as the sports management team, Powerlifting sports management team, we actually submitted a rule change proposal to Special Olympics North America for the 15-pound bar to be accepted at competition and allowed for athletes who can't lift the 45-pound bar. That was submitted at the beginning of October. We more than likely will not hear back until late March, when the new rules are actually distributed, possibly even slightly later than March. More than likely, we won't hear back from the committee. We'll just find out when the next rules come out. But that was submitted. We did submit that rules change.
Okay, but I think where the communication breakdown is between the Special Olympics group and the IPF. And trust me, I have been researching this since the National Games, and I've been in contact with many people at the higher level at the IPF. And I've also done a lot of research in regards to the Special Olympics and all the other sports and how each state has followed the rules, for example, track and field, of USA Track and Field, unless those rules do not meet the needs of these athletes. So I think to move forward with this, you need to be aware that the IPF may still shoot this down at the world level. So you have to make a decision if you still want to be part of the IPF, part of the USAPL organization, or does the Special Olympics want to create their own set of rules that can be held to the standard of the IPF and USAPL, but makes accommodations, or do we just tell these athletes, you'll never make a national or a world team. You'll never be selected, period.
Yeah, so these are all definitely good topics, Joe, and we can discuss these further or offline, and you and I will connect at Fall Fest.
Okay.
You are definitely raising some good topics. Just, I don't think it's something right now for full group discussion, but definitely something that we should talk through. But yeah, so thank you for bringing that up, and you and I will definitely be in contact. All right, so we've got 2 more slides, and we'll have to run through a quick question session here. If I can get my computer to work. There we go. Okay, just some miscellaneous stuff. Results, they'll be posted in the arena as they have been in the past. Then we'll email a full set of results out following the competition. Protest procedures. Protests must be filed at the powerlifting control area, that table to the front left of the stage. Within 30 minutes of posted results, only the head coach can file a protest. If you file a protest and a decision is made and you would like to appeal that decision that was made by the Powerlifting Rules Committee, then those appeals need to be filed within 24 hours of the competition, or the decision, excuse me, in the control center, or in the situation where the competition ends, you still do have 24 hours. It will need to be submitted to both myself and Mike Sarnowski. If you have any special needs that you don't, for any of your athletes, or accommodations that you don't believe we're already aware of, by that I mean that are not in GMS, which is our games management system, then please submit those at this point to Len and myself via email. If you know for a fact that there is a note in an athlete's GMS record that they have an accommodation for powerlifting, and I mean you are 100% certain of it, that's fine. If there's any doubt at all that you think we might not be aware of it, please email Len and I to let us know. As always, medical will be on site. There's usually someone in the gym the entirety of our competition, but if not, then they will be within a few hundred feet of the arena, and we'll be able to respond immediately. Again, some miscellaneous stuff. Opening ceremonies. As everyone knows from past years, there's the brief opening ceremonies at 9 o'clock in the arena. Lunches will be delivered to each venue. That will begin approximately at 11 a.m. Coaches will pick up all lunches for their team as a group. Family hospitality. Again, the family hospitality is in the field house, which is directly across the hall from the arena. Excuse me. And then there'll be refreshments, some information about Special Olympics, and some other topics that might interest families. And then the refreshments are for family members only. I just want to make a note of that. The event guide will be emailed out to all registered coaches on or before Friday, October 16th. And that's coaches who we have the emails for. So they're in GMS. We have an updated email, and they're registered for the competition. An evaluation survey, there'll be the link in the event guide. And you should please encourage all of your coaches. You should do it yourself. All athletes. We don't have any partners in this situation, but any family members as well, to complete this survey by November 13th. Any questions? Does anyone have any questions at all? Comments, feedback, concerns, anything?
You know what I think we should add to the event is some sort of a brief overview of the lifts and the rules for the audience, because as an announcer, many times people who are new to the sport, even people who've been in the sport, they don't understand why a lift may or may not be called. And if you do it before the event starts, it's sometimes a nice way to have the audience understand what's going on the platform, because sometimes they don't know.
I think that's a great idea. Len, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I think it's a good idea as well.
Yeah, I think we can definitely do something of that nature at the beginning of competition. I think that's a great idea. Thank you, LJ. Anything else? Anyone? All right. Well, if you have any questions after this call tonight, your regional sports director is listed there. For those coaches who do not fall within my area, please feel free to email me if you do have a question. I'm more than happy to answer it. Don't feel like you need to go through Melissa Anger or Sam. If it's something specifically related to powerlifting, please feel free to just come to me, as I can get you the answer almost instantaneously. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Again, please feel free to shoot me an email if you think of a question after tonight's call.